The crimson banner of Queen Lydia's court rippled in the morning breeze as Captain Marcus Stone approached the palace gates. His polished armor caught the sunlight, each step measured and deliberate. Behind him, 4 elite guards maintained perfect formation, their faces masks of professional calm, despite the unusual nature of their mission. "Sir," whispered Lieutenant Kate Morgan, falling into step beside him. "The intelligence reports confirm it. The human male named Alex Carter has been feeding information to our enemies for months." Marcus's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Alex Carter had served as a minor diplomatic aide for 2 years, trusted with access to sensitive areas of the palace. The betrayal stung deeper because Carter seemed genuinely devoted to Queen Lydia's cause. "Orders remain unchanged," Marcus replied, his voice barely audible. "Arrest him quietly. No disruption to the morning court session." They entered the grand foyer where marble pillars stretched toward ornate ceilings. Courtiers in elaborate gowns and formal attire moved in careful patterns, their conversations hushed and respectful. The weight of duty pressed against Marcus's shoulders as he scanned the crowd for their target. Kate pointed subtly toward the eastern corridor, there, by the tapestries. Alex Carter stood near a magnificent wall hanging depicting Queen Lydia's coronation. He appeared relaxed, chatting with a young page about palace artwork. His brown hair was neatly combed, his diplomatic robes pressed and proper. Nothing in his demeanor suggested guilt or awareness of impending arrest. "Remember," Marcus murmured to his team, "professional, clean. The Queen values discretion above all else." They approached with practiced stealth, their boots silent on the polished stone. Other courtiers continued their business, unaware of the drama unfolding mere feet away. Marcus felt his pulse quicken despite years of training and experience. Alex turned at their approach, confusion flickering across his features. "Captain Stone, is everything all right?" "Alex Carter," Marcus said formally, his voice cutting through the ambient chatter. "By order of Her Majesty Queen Lydia, you are under arrest for treason and conspiracy against the crown." The accusation hit like a thunderbolt. Nearby conversations stopped abruptly. Courtiers froze in place, their eyes wide with shock and fascination. Several ladies gasped audibly, their hands flying to cover their mouths. Alex's face drained of color. "Captain, there must be some mistake. I would never betray Queen Lydia. Never." "Turn around," Kate commanded, producing restraints from her belt. "Place your hands behind your back." "Wait, please," Alex pleaded, his voice rising in desperation. "Let me explain. I know how this looks, but you have to listen to me." Marcus raised his hand, signaling his guards to pause. Something in Alex's tone gave him pause. Years of experience had taught him to recognize genuine surprise versus calculated performance. This felt different from standard denials. "Speak quickly," Marcus said, his eyes scanning the growing crowd of onlookers. Alex took a shaky breath. 3 months ago, I discovered someone was accessing classified documents through my security clearance. I've been conducting my own investigation, trying to identify the real traitor. I have evidence hidden in my quarters." "Convenient," Kate muttered, her hand remaining on her weapon. "No, it's true," Alex insisted. "Lady Patricia Hawthorne has been using my access codes. She obtained them during a diplomatic reception when I was briefly unconscious, after drinking wine that tasted strange." The name sent a chill through Marcus's spine. Lady Hawthorne was one of Queen Lydia's most trusted advisors, a woman with decades of loyal service and unwavering dedication to the crown. "That's a serious accusation," Marcus said carefully. "I know," Alex replied. "That's why I've been gathering proof before making any accusations. You can't just accuse someone of Lady Hawthorne's stature without irrefutable evidence." Marcus studied Alex's face intently. Sweat beaded on the young man's forehead, but his eyes remained steady and sincere. In his 15 years of service, Marcus had developed an instinct for reading people under pressure. "Sir," Kate whispered urgently, "we have our orders." The crowd pressed closer, eager to witness the outcome. Marcus felt the weight of dozens of eyes boring into him. waiting for his decision. Queen Lydia valued both loyalty and justice, but she demanded results above all else. "Very well," Marcus said finally. "You'll accompany us to your quarters. If you're telling the truth, the evidence will speak for itself. If you're lying, your punishment will be severe." Alex nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Captain. I won't disappoint you." As they moved toward the residential wing, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this arrest was about to become far more complicated than anyone anticipated. The residential wing of the palace buzzed with nervous energy as word of Alex's arrest spread through the corridors. Servants pressed themselves against walls as Marcus and his team escorted their prisoner toward the diplomatic quarters. "Third floor, room 18, Alex said, his voice steadier now despite the restraints binding his wrists. Kate maintained a firm grip on Alex's arm while the other guards formed a protective perimeter. Their footsteps echoed off stone walls lined with portraits of previous monarchs, each face seeming to judge the proceedings with stern disapproval. "Captain," whispered Sergeant David Hayes as they climbed the spiral staircase. "Lady Hawthorne just entered the main courtyard. Should we delay?" Marcus considered the implications. If Alex was telling the truth, Lady Hawthorne's presence complicated matters significantly. If Alex was lying, they were wasting precious time while the real investigation stalled. "Proceed," Marcus decided, "but stay alert." They reached Alex's modest quarters, a simple room befitting his junior diplomatic status. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating shelves lined with books about history and international relations. Everything appeared orderly and unremarkable. "Behind the bookshelf," Alex said, nodding toward the eastern wall. "There's a loose stone. I hid everything there." Kate released Alex's arm and approached the indicated area. She ran her fingers along the mortar lines until finding a stone that shifted slightly under pressure. With careful manipulation, she extracted a small cloth bundle. "Documents," she reported, unwrapping the package. "Letters, access logs, and what appears to be a detailed timeline." Marcus took the papers, scanning their contents rapidly. His expression grew increasingly grave as he read. The documents detailed a sophisticated scheme involving forged security clearances, stolen diplomatic communications, and systematic intelligence gathering. "These are Lady Hawthorne's personal seals," Marcus said slowly, "and her handwriting." "Keep reading," Alex urged. "The third page shows how she obtained my access codes during the spring diplomatic reception." The evidence was damning. Detailed records showed Lady Hawthorne drugging Alex's wine with a mild sedative, then using his unconscious state to steal his security credentials. Over the following months, she had systematically accessed classified information and passed it to enemy agents.
"Sir," David said urgently from the window.
"Lady Hawthorne is approaching this building. She has 6 guards with her." Marcus felt ice forming in his veins. Lady Hawthorne rarely traveled with such heavy security unless she anticipated trouble. Her timing seemed far too convenient to be coincidental. "She knows," Alex said quietly. "She must have sources inside the palace who informed her about my arrest." "Remove his restraints," Marcus ordered Kate. "If he's telling the truth, we need his cooperation." Kate hesitated for a moment before complying. Alex rubbed his wrists gratefully, then moved to a desk drawer and retrieved additional papers. "I documented everything," Alex explained quickly. "Meeting times, drop locations, communication methods. Lady Hawthorne has been selling our secrets for over 2 years. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Marcus counted at least 8 people approaching, their boots striking stone in military precision. His own team numbered just 4, plus Alex, creating a significant numerical disadvantage if confrontation became necessary. "Captain Stone!" Lady Hawthorne's voice called through the door. "I understand you have a prisoner to transfer." Marcus met Alex's eyes, seeing his own suspicions reflected there. Lady Hawthorne had no authority over prisoner transfers, and her unsolicited involvement raised immediate red flags. "One moment, my lady," Marcus called back, then whispered to his team. "Defensive positions. Something's wrong." Kate moved to the window while David and the remaining guard flanked the door. Alex gathered his evidence carefully, tucking the most important documents inside his robes. "She can't be allowed to destroy this evidence," Alex whispered urgently. "Too many people will die if her network continues operating." The door handle rattled as someone tested it from outside. Marcus realized they were trapped in a room with limited exits. facing an opponent who held significant political power and apparent military support. "Captain," Lady Hawthorne called again, her tone growing impatient. "Open this door immediately. I have urgent orders from Queen Lydia herself." Marcus knew Queen Lydia never issued verbal orders through intermediaries for matters of this sensitivity. Lady Hawthorne was clearly lying, but proving it would require surviving the next few minutes. "Prepare for resistance," Marcus whispered to his team. "Protect the evidence at all costs." The sound of metal against metal suggested Lady Hawthorne's guards were attempting to force the lock. Time was running out, and Marcus needed to make a decision that could determine not just their survival, but the security of the entire kingdom. Alex moved closer to Marcus, his voice barely audible. "There's a service passage behind the tapestry. It leads to the main courtyard where more loyal guards should be stationed." Marcus nodded grimly. Their only chance lay in reaching reinforcements before Lady Hawthorne could silence them permanently. The lock clicked ominously as Lady Hawthorne's guards finally breached it. The door burst open with violent force, revealing Lady Hawthorne flanked by 6 guards in unfamiliar armor. Their faces were cold and professional, but Marcus immediately noticed subtle differences in their equipment and bearing that suggested they weren't palace regulars. "Stand down, Captain Stone," Lady Hawthorne commanded, her voice carrying decades of accumulated authority. "This man is coming with me." Marcus kept his hand near his weapon while maintaining a respectful posture. "My lady, I have direct orders from Queen Lydia regarding this prisoner. Perhaps we should consult with Her Majesty directly." Lady Hawthorne's eyes flickered with barely contained irritation. The Queen's instructions were quite clear. Alex Carter is to be transferred to my custody immediately for enhanced questioning. "Enhanced questioning isn't standard protocol for diplomatic personnel," Kate interjected carefully. "These aren't standard circumstances," Lady Hawthorne snapped, then seemed to catch herself getting too defensive. "Captain, I understand your dedication to proper procedure, but time is critical. We have reason to believe Carter has accomplices who must be identified quickly." Marcus studied the guards behind Lady Hawthorne more carefully. Their weapons were foreign-made, their stances suggested different training traditions, and most tellingly, none wore the ceremonial pins that identified legitimate palace security personnel. Alex remained silent near the bookshelf, but Marcus caught his subtle gesture toward the hidden documents. The young man's face showed remarkable composure, despite the obvious danger of his situation. "Of course, my lady," Marcus said diplomatically. "However, regulations require me to verify any transfer orders with the palace command structure. Surely you understand the importance of maintaining proper chains of authority." Lady Hawthorne's patience visibly frayed. "Captain Stone, I am giving you a direct order. Stand aside and release the prisoner immediately." The tension in the room became almost unbearable. Marcus's guards shifted subtly into defensive positions, while Lady Hawthorne's men moved their hands closer to their weapons. Alex pressed himself against the wall, clearly understanding that violence might erupt at any moment. "I'm afraid that's impossible," Marcus said firmly. "Queen Lydia's personal orders supersede all other authorities in matters of treason investigations." "Queen Lydia is not available," Lady Hawthorne replied too quickly. The admission hung in the air like an accusation. Marcus felt his suspicions crystallizing into certainty. If Queen Lydia truly wasn't available, why hadn't Lady Hawthorne mentioned this crucial detail earlier? And how did she know the Queen's current status unless she had been specifically monitoring or controlling access to her? "Then we wait until she is available," Marcus stated. Lady Hawthorne's mask finally slipped completely. Her expression hardened into something predatory and calculating. "I had hoped to handle this diplomatically, Captain. You're forcing my hand." She gestured sharply to her guards, who immediately drew their weapons. The foreign steel gleamed menacingly in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. "Last chance, Stone," Lady Hawthorne said coldly. "Hand over Carter and the evidence he's been gathering, and I might let your team live." The admission that she knew about evidence sealed her guilt completely. Marcus drew his sword in one smooth motion, his guards following suit instantly. The small room erupted into chaos as steel met steel. Kate engaged 2 attackers simultaneously, her blade work precise and deadly. David held the doorway against 3 opponents, using the narrow space to prevent them from overwhelming him with numbers. Marcus found himself facing Lady Hawthorne's personal bodyguard, a massive man with scars covering his hands and forearms. Alex dove behind the desk as weapons clashed around him. He clutched the crucial evidence against his chest, knowing that these documents represented the only proof of Lady Hawthorne's treachery. "Kill them all!" Lady Hawthorne shrieked, abandoning any pretense of subtlety. "Burn the evidence and report that they resisted arrest." Marcus parried a vicious overhead strike, then riposted with a thrust that forced his opponent backward. Around him, the battle raged with desperate intensity, as both sides fought for control of the room and its secrets. The clash of steel echoed through the chamber as Marcus engaged Lady Hawthorne's bodyguard in deadly combat. The scarred man fought with brutal efficiency, his blade seeking killing strikes with mechanical precision. Kate pressed her attack against two opponents, driving them back toward the window with a series of lightning-fast combinations. Her smaller size became an advantage in the cramped space, allowing her to slip beneath their guard repeatedly. David held the doorway like a fortress, his swordwork methodical and defensive. He wounded one attacker severely, forcing the remaining two to step over their fallen comrade while maintaining their assault. Alex remained hidden behind the overturned desk, clutching the evidence that would expose Lady Hawthorne's network. His heart pounded as he watched the Royal Guard risk their lives to protect both him and the truth. "You cannot win," Lady Hawthorne called out over the clashing weapons. "Even if you survive, who will believe your word against mine?" Marcus deflected another strike, then spoke between attacks. "The evidence speaks louder than either of us, my lady. Evidence can be destroyed," she replied coldly. "Witnesses can be eliminated." Her words carried chilling certainty, suggesting this wasn't her first time covering up treasonous activities. Marcus realized they were fighting against more than just corruption, but an entire shadow organization that had been operating within the palace for years. Kate's opponents began retreating as her relentless pressure took its toll. She had wounded both men, and their movements grew sluggish from blood loss and exhaustion. Her blade found its mark again, dropping one attacker permanently. David's defensive strategy proved effective as his remaining opponents grew frustrated and careless. He exploited an opening to deliver a disabling strike, then turned his attention to supporting his captain. Marcus's duel with the bodyguard intensified as both men recognized the tide of battle shifting. The scarred warrior abandoned technique in favor of raw aggression, launching a series of powerful attacks designed to overwhelm Marcus's defenses. "Sir," Kate called out, having finished her opponents, "reinforcements approaching from the courtyard." Through the window, they could see additional palace guards responding to the sounds of combat. But Marcus couldn't tell whether these approaching forces were loyal to the crown or part of Lady Hawthorne's conspiracy. "How deep does this go?" Marcus demanded, pressing his attack against the bodyguard. Lady Hawthorne's laugh was bitter and triumphant. "Deeper than you can imagine, Captain. Your precious queen has enemies everywhere, and some of them wear her own colors." The revelation that corruption had infiltrated the palace guard itself sent ice through Marcus's veins. How many of their fellow guards might be compromised? How could they trust anyone in this web of deception? Alex suddenly stood up from behind the desk, his voice clear and determined. "Captain Stone, I know who we can trust." Lady Hawthorne spun toward him, fury blazing in her eyes. "You should have stayed hidden, boy. The Queen has a private guard," Alex continued urgently. "Captain Sarah Williams leads them. She reports directly to Her Majesty and no one else." Marcus recognized the name. Captain Williams commanded the Queen's personal protection detail, a small but elite unit known for absolute loyalty and discretion. "Williams can't help you," Lady Hawthorne snarled. "She's been reassigned to the eastern provinces on urgent business." But Alex shook his head. "That's what you were told. But Captain Williams never left the palace. She's been conducting her own investigation into security breaches." The information hit Lady Hawthorne like a physical blow. Her confident expression cracked, revealing genuine fear for the first time since the confrontation began. Marcus seized the moment of distraction to deliver a decisive strike against the bodyguard, sending the man crashing to the floor. Around the room, the last of Lady Hawthorne's forces fell silent. "It's over," Marcus declared, pointing his sword at Lady Hawthorne's throat. "Surrender now and face the Queen's justice." But Lady Hawthorne pulled a small vial from her robes, her smile returning with deadly intent. Not quite, Captain. This poison acts within seconds, and I have nothing left to lose. The standoff continued as footsteps thundered up the stairs toward their location. The chamber fell into tense silence as Lady Hawthorne held the poison vial aloft, her finger poised over the cork. Marcus kept his sword trained on her while his guards maintained defensive positions around Alex and the crucial evidence. "You think death frightens me?" Lady Hawthorne asked with cold amusement. "I've served enemies who make Queen Lydia look like a child playing at royalty." Heavy boots pounded up the staircase, growing closer with each passing second. Marcus strained to identify the approaching forces, knowing that their survival might depend on whether reinforcements or additional enemies arrived first. Alex stepped forward despite the obvious danger, his voice steady and compassionate. "Lady Hawthorne, it doesn't have to end this way. Queen Lydia values mercy as much as justice." "Mercy?" Lady Hawthorne laughed bitterly. "Your precious queen executed my brother for far lesser crimes than mine." She showed no mercy then. The personal motivation behind her betrayal finally became clear. Marcus realized they were dealing with calculated revenge rather than simple greed or political opportunism. Kate moved subtly toward the window, preparing to signal the approaching guards about their situation. But Lady Hawthorne noticed the movement and raised her free hand in warning. "Everyone remains perfectly still," she commanded. "One false move and I take this poison, along with all the secrets your enemies would pay dearly to learn." David tensed near the doorway as the footsteps reached their floor. Voices could be heard in the corridor, but the words remained indistinct through the stone walls. "My lady," Marcus said carefully, "your brother's execution was for treason against the crown. The evidence against him was overwhelming." "Evidence can be fabricated," Lady Hawthorne replied, "just as I've fabricated evidence against others over the years." The admission confirmed Marcus's worst fears about the scope of her conspiracy. How many innocent people had suffered due to her manipulations? Alex took another step forward, ignoring the sword pointed in his direction. "Please, there's been enough death. Help us identify the other conspirators, and perhaps the Queen will show the mercy your brother never received." "My brother was loyal to the crown until his dying breath," Lady Hawthorne snarled. "He was murdered because he discovered someone else's treachery, just as you claim to have discovered mine." The revelation struck like lightning. Marcus realized they might not be dealing with simple revenge, but with a complex web where Lady Hawthorne herself might have been manipulated by an even deeper conspiracy. "Who really killed your brother?" Alex asked quietly. Lady Hawthorne's hand trembled as old pain mixed with fury in her expression. The same person who convinced Queen Lydia that fabricated evidence was real. The same person who has been using me ever since, threatening to reveal my own forced participation unless I continued serving their interests. The sound of armor in the corridor grew closer. Multiple voices could now be heard discussing tactics and positioning, suggesting a significant force had arrived. "Captain Stone," came a clear female voice from beyond the door. "This is Captain Sarah Williams. Report your status immediately." Relief flooded through Marcus at hearing the voice of the Queen's personal guard commander. Alex had been correct about her continued presence in the palace. "Multiple wounded, one high-value prisoner, critical evidence secured," Marcus called back. "Lady Hawthorne is armed with poison and making threats." "Understood. Stand by for entry." Lady Hawthorne's face went pale as she recognized the voice of someone beyond her influence or control. Captain Williams reported directly to Queen Lydia and had never shown any sign of corruption or compromise. "This changes nothing," Lady Hawthorne said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "It changes everything," Alex replied gently. "Captain Williams can protect you from whoever's been controlling you. The Queen's personal guard answers to no one else." The door opened slowly, revealing Captain Williams accompanied by 6 guards in the distinctive silver armor of the Queen's personal protection detail. Their presence immediately shifted the balance of power in the room. "Lady Hawthorne," Captain Williams said formally, "by direct order of Queen Lydia, you are commanded to surrender all weapons and submit to immediate questioning." Lady Hawthorne stared at the poison vial in her hand, then looked around the room at the faces surrounding her. For the first time since the confrontation began, she appeared to be considering alternatives to death. The moments stretched endlessly as everyone waited for her decision. Captain Williams stepped into the chamber with measured confidence, her silver armor gleaming in the afternoon light. Behind her, the Queen's personal guards formed a disciplined line, their presence immediately commanding respect and attention from everyone in the room. "Lady Hawthorne," Captain Williams said with quiet authority, "Queen Lydia is aware of your situation. She knows about the threats against you following your brother's death." Lady Hawthorne's hand froze above the poison vial, shock replacing the desperate determination in her eyes. "That's impossible. No one knows about the coercion." "Her Majesty knows everything," Captain Williams replied. "She's been conducting a parallel investigation for months, trying to identify the true puppet master behind this conspiracy." Marcus felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Queen Lydia's apparent absence wasn't abandonment of her duties, but careful maneuvering to expose a threat that went to the very heart of the kingdom's security. Alex moved slowly toward Lady Hawthorne, his voice gentle and understanding. "You don't have to die for someone else's crimes. Help us identify who's been controlling you, and Queen Lydia will ensure your protection." "Protection?" Lady Hawthorne laughed bitterly, but the sound carried more pain than amusement. "You don't understand the reach of these people. They have agents throughout the kingdom, including positions you would never suspect." Captain Williams nodded gravely. "That's precisely why the Queen needs your cooperation. You've seen their network from the inside. Your knowledge could save countless lives." The poison vial trembled in Lady Hawthorne's grip as internal conflict raged across her features. Years of fear and coercion warred against a desperate hope for redemption and safety. Kate stepped forward carefully, her sword lowered. "But, my lady, think about your brother. Would he want his death to result in more innocent people suffering?" "My brother would want justice," Lady Hawthorne whispered. "Not just for himself, but for everyone who's been hurt by this conspiracy." David maintained his position near the fallen attackers, ensuring none could pose a continued threat. The foreign weapons scattered around the room provided additional evidence of the conspiracy's international connections. "The Queen awaits your testimony," Captain Williams said. "She's prepared to offer full immunity in exchange for complete cooperation in exposing this network." Lady Hawthorne looked around the room at the faces surrounding her, perhaps seeing them clearly for the first time. The royal guards who had risked their lives to protect evidence and truth. Alex, who had nearly died trying to expose her crimes. Captain Williams, representing the justice and mercy of Queen Lydia's rule. "They killed more than just my brother," Lady Hawthorne said quietly. "Over the past 2 years, anyone who got too close to the truth has died in convenient accidents or sudden illnesses." Marcus exchanged glances with Captain Williams. The scope of the conspiracy continued expanding beyond anything they had initially imagined. "Give us names," Captain Williams said urgently. "Help us stop them before more innocent people die." Lady Hawthorne set the poison vial on a nearby table with shaking hands. "The leader calls himself the Architect. He operates from within the noble houses, using legitimate business and political connections to mask his activities." Alex retrieved additional documents from his hiding place behind the bookshelf. "I documented some unusual meetings between foreign merchants and various court officials. The patterns might help identify the Architect." Captain Williams examined the papers quickly, her expression growing increasingly grave. "These trade agreements? They're providing cover for information exchanges and payment transfers. The spring diplomatic reception where my access codes were stolen," Lady Hawthorne continued. "That wasn't opportunistic. The Architect planned every detail, including which wine I would drink and when." Marcus realized they were dealing with an enemy who possessed detailed knowledge of palace routines, security procedures, and personal habits of key individuals. "Who else is compromised?" Captain Williams asked directly. Lady Hawthorne took a shuddering breath before answering. "Lord Frederick Ashton coordinates the financial aspects. Minister Elena Rodriguez provides legislative cover. Captain Thomas Bradley commands a unit of corrupted guards." The revelation that a guard captain was involved sent chills through everyone present. "Bradley commanded significant resources and had access to sensitive areas of the palace. There are others," Lady Hawthorne continued, "but I was never told all the names." "The Architect compartmentalized information to protect the network?" Captain Williams activated a communication device, speaking rapidly to unseen colleagues. Immediate detention orders for Ashton, Rodriguez, and Bradley. Full security lockdown until further notice. The sounds of increased activity could be heard throughout the palace as loyal forces moved to secure potential threats and protect key locations. Lady Hawthorne slumped against the wall, exhaustion finally overcoming her. I never wanted any of this. When they first approached me after my brother's execution, I thought they were offering sympathy and support. Instead, they were recruiting you, Alex said with understanding. They showed me evidence that someone else had framed my brother, then gradually drew me deeper into their web. By the time I realized what was happening, they held enough leverage to destroy me completely. Captain Williams approached Lady Hawthorne with careful respect. Your cooperation today has already saved lives. Queen Lydia recognizes courage even in difficult circumstances. As palace guards began securing the scene and treating wounded personnel, Marcus reflected on how a simple arrest had unveiled a conspiracy that threatened the entire kingdom. The real battle was just beginning, but at least now they knew who their enemies were. The throne room of Queen Lydia's palace had never felt more majestic or intimidating than it did in this moment. Tall windows cast golden afternoon light across marble floors polished to mirror brightness, while ancient tapestries depicting royal history lined the walls with silent dignity. Queen Lydia sat upon her ancestral throne, a masterwork of carved stone and precious metals that had witnessed centuries of justice, mercy, and royal decree. Her presence commanded absolute attention from everyone gathered in the vast chamber. Marcus stood at attention alongside his team, their formal dress uniforms pristine despite the morning's violent confrontation. Next to them, Alex Carter waited with quiet dignity, still processing the dramatic reversal of his circumstances from suspected traitor to honored witness. Lady Hawthorne knelt before the throne in restraints, her once proud demeanor replaced by genuine remorse and cooperation. Captain Williams flanked her, representing both protection and authority in equal measure. "Rise, Alex Carter," Queen Lydia commanded, her voice carrying easily through the chamber's acoustics. Alex approached the throne with careful steps, uncertain about proper protocol for such an unusual situation. His diplomatic training had never covered scenarios quite like this one. "Your actions today demonstrated remarkable courage and loyalty," the Queen continued. "Despite facing false accusations and mortal danger, you chose truth over safety." The gathered courtiers and officials watched in fascination as Queen Lydia descended from her throne, a gesture reserved for the most significant ceremonial occasions. "Your investigation into the conspiracy surrounding Lady Hawthorne revealed a threat to our kingdom's very foundation," Queen Lydia said. "Your evidence has allowed us to identify and detain 12 additional conspirators, saving countless lives." Marcus felt profound respect watching Alex's composure in the face of royal recognition. The young man had shown remarkable bravery and intelligence throughout the crisis. "Furthermore," Queen Lydia continued, "your compassion toward Lady Hawthorne, even after learning of her crimes against you, demonstrates the wisdom and mercy that mark true leadership." The words hung in the air with obvious significance. Several courtiers exchanged glances, sensing that this ceremony might be leading towards something unprecedented. Queen Lydia removed a golden signet ring from her finger, a piece of jewelry that had belonged to the royal family for generations. The gesture sent murmurs through the assembled crowd. "Alex Carter, your actions have proven you worthy of the highest trust and responsibility. I hereby name you Prince Consort of this realm, with all rights and authorities that position entails." The announcement struck the throne room like thunder. Courtiers gasped audibly, some bowing immediately, while others stared in amazement at the unprecedented elevation of a minor diplomatic aide to royal status. Alex fell to one knee, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the honor being bestowed upon him. "Your Majesty, I am deeply honored, but I hardly think myself worthy of such recognition. Worthiness is demonstrated through actions, not birth," Queen Lydia replied firmly. "You risked everything to protect our kingdom. Now I ask you to help me rebuild the trust the conspiracy has damaged." Captain Williams stepped forward with a ceremonial sword, its blade gleaming with ancient inscriptions. "The oath of royal service requires your solemn promise to defend the crown, protect the innocent, and uphold justice throughout the realm." Alex placed his right hand over his heart, his voice strong and clear. I swear by my honor and life to serve Queen Lydia, defend this kingdom, and protect all who seek justice within its borders." Queen Lydia placed the signet ring upon Alex's finger, its weight both literal and symbolic. "Rise, Prince Alex, and take your place at my side." The transformation was complete and irreversible. Alex stood as royalty, his bearing subtly changed by the massive responsibility now resting upon his shoulders. Marcus and his guards bowed deeply, recognizing their new prince with professional respect and personal admiration. The man who had begun the day as their prisoner now commanded their loyalty as a member of the royal family. Additionally, Queen Lydia announced, Captain Marcus Stone and his team are hereby elevated to the Royal Honor Guard for their exemplary service during this crisis. The recognition brought visible pride to Marcus's face. The Royal Honor Guard represented the highest level of military service, answerable directly to the crown and entrusted with the kingdom's most sensitive security matters. Lady Hawthorne remained kneeling, but Queen Lydia addressed her with unexpected compassion. "Lady Patricia Hawthorne, your crimes were serious, but your cooperation and genuine remorse are noted. You will serve 5 years in protective custody, helping us dismantle the remaining conspiracy networks." The sentence was far more merciful than anyone expected for treason charges. Several courtiers looked surprised, but Prince Alex nodded approvingly at the balance between justice and mercy. "Your Majesty's wisdom guides us all," Marcus said formally. "The kingdom is fortunate to have leadership that recognizes both courage and redemption." Queen Lydia returned to her throne, but the ceremony's impact continued resonating throughout the chamber. History had been made, traditions respectfully challenged, and new bonds of loyalty forged. "Prince Alex," Queen Lydia said, "your first duty will be reviewing our security protocols and diplomatic procedures. The conspiracy we've uncovered suggests weaknesses that require immediate attention." "I would be honored to serve in whatever capacity you deem appropriate," Alex replied. As the formal ceremony concluded, Marcus reflected on the extraordinary day that had transformed a routine arrest into a pivotal moment for the kingdom. Truth had prevailed over deception, courage had been recognized and rewarded, and justice had been tempered with mercy. The royal guard now served both their queen and their new prince, knowing that both had proven themselves worthy of absolute loyalty and dedication. The evening sun cast long shadows across the palace courtyard as the day's momentous events finally drew to a close. In the distance, church bells rang out across the kingdom, announcing the elevation of Prince Alex to subjects who had awakened that morning never knowing his name. Prince Alex stood on the royal balcony overlooking the courtyard, still adjusting to the weight of the signet ring upon his finger. Below him, loyal subjects had gathered to catch glimpses of their new prince, their voices carrying excitement and curiosity about this unprecedented turn of events. Queen Lydia joined him at the balcony's edge, her presence both comforting and commanding. The afternoon's revelations had strengthened the bond between them, forging a partnership based on mutual respect and shared dedication to the kingdom's welfare. "The responsibility feels overwhelming," Alex admitted quietly, his eyes scanning the crowd below. "This morning I was facing execution for treason. Tonight I'm responsible for helping govern an entire kingdom. Leadership often comes to those who least expect it," Queen Lydia replied with gentle wisdom. "Your humility in the face of authority will serve you well in the years ahead." Captain Williams approached from behind, her silver armor reflecting the golden sunset. Her expression carried both professional satisfaction and personal respect for the day's outcomes. "The security sweep is complete, Your Majesties," she reported formally. "All identified conspirators have been detained, and their network appears to be fully dismantled. Marcus and his newly elevated honor guard maintain their positions around the royal couple, their vigilance unchanged despite the successful resolution of immediate threats. The conspiracy's reach had been extensive enough that continued caution remained essential." Prince Alex asked. "Lady Hawthorne's information led us to his subordinates, but the mastermind remains unidentified." Captain Williams consulted her reports carefully. Lord Frederick Ashton provided additional names before his interrogation concluded. "We believe the architect was actually Minister Elena Rodriguez, operating under a false identity to deflect suspicion." The revelation that one of the kingdom's most trusted legislative officials had been orchestrating the entire conspiracy shocked even those who had witnessed the day's earlier surprises. Rodriguez had access to virtually every aspect of government operations, Queen Lydia mused. Her position allowed her to manipulate policies, access classified information, and influence key appointments, including the appointment of compromised guards like Captain Bradley, Marcus added grimly. The network was positioned to control multiple layers of palace security. Prince Alex studied the documents Captain Williams had provided, his analytical mind already working through implications and necessary reforms. We'll need to implement comprehensive security reviews for all government positions. That will be your first major initiative as Prince Consort, Queen Lydia agreed. Your experience with investigative work makes you uniquely qualified to oversee such reforms. The crowd below had grown larger as news of the day's events spread throughout the capital city. Their cheers and expressions of loyalty provided a stark contrast to the morning's atmosphere of suspicion and betrayal. They deserved to know the truth about what happened, Prince Alex said, gesturing toward the assembled subjects. Transparency will help rebuild the trust that conspiracy damaged. Queen Lydia nodded approvingly. Tomorrow we'll address the kingdom publicly, explaining both the threat we faced and the measures we're taking to prevent future infiltration. Lady Hawthorne was escorted across the courtyard below, her destination the secure facility where she would spend her sentence helping to dismantle any remaining conspiracy elements. Her cooperation had already proven valuable, but much work remained to ensure complete security. She could have chosen death over redemption, Prince Alex observed. Her decision to cooperate saved more lives than we'll ever know. Mercy often accomplishes more than harsh justice alone. Queen Lydia replied, your compassion towards someone who betrayed you demonstrated wisdom beyond your years. As darkness began settling over the kingdom, torches were lit throughout the palace grounds, their flames dancing in the evening breeze. The sight symbolized hope and renewal after a day of shadows and deception. Marcus approached the royal couple with his final report of the day. All security protocols are now updated, Your Majesties. The palace is secure, and additional loyal guards have been assigned to critical positions. Excellent work, Captain, Queen Lydia commended. Your team's performance today exemplified the finest traditions of royal service. Prince Alex turned to address Marcus and his honor guard personally. Gentlemen, your courage and professionalism saved not just my life, but the stability of the entire kingdom. I am honored to serve alongside warriors of such caliber. The formal words carried genuine emotion and respect. Despite his elevation to royalty, Prince Alex clearly understood that effective leadership required collaboration rather than mere authority. The honor is entirely ours, Your Highness, Marcus replied for his team. We pledge our continued loyalty and service to both Your Majesties. As the evening ceremony concluded and the crowd below began to disperse, Prince Alex reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought him to this moment. From suspected traitor to royal consort in a single day demonstrated both the kingdom's capacity for justice and the unpredictable nature of destiny itself. Queen Lydia took his arm gently as they prepared to return inside the palace. Tomorrow begins your true education in leadership and governance. Tonight, however, rest and reflect on what you've accomplished. The future stretched ahead filled with challenges and opportunities, but Prince Alex faced it with confidence born from surviving the ultimate test of character and loyalty. The kingdom had found not just a new prince, but a leader worthy of the crown's trust and the people's devotion. Behind them, the honor guard maintained their eternal vigil, knowing that peace had been restored, but vigilance must continue forever.